How you doing, everybody? My name is Matt Dinerman on Out of the Starting Gate with Matt Dinerman, episode 3 here. We got a lot to discuss, and joining me on this week's edition of Out of the Starting Gate is Jose Santos Jr. Of course, you might know that name in racing. Jose Santos, his father, Jose Santos Sr., a Hall of Fame rider. If you remember Funny Side, Jose, of course, the regular rider for Funny Side. Jose, good to have you on. You have that jockey genetics. Yeah. And you now are a jockey agent because you got a little too big to be a jockey.
Yeah, way too big.
So here we are.
Yeah,
the next best step.
Yeah, for sure. This is the closest thing I can do to feeling like I am a rider. You know, I'm connected with them and get to work with them on the daily. So I absolutely love it.
And of course, you've been in that world since you were in diapers. Here's the thing that I think is very interesting about you as a jockey agent is you're really the first person to take on many different riders in many different circuits. You have 2 riders here, Manny Esquivel and Julian Leparoux, but you also have riders in other circuits, in other states. So obviously, it's hard to have 2 riders as it is in one place. Never mind, at times you've had up to 9, 10 riders. So how exactly do you keep track of all these horses? What do you do? What's your system to keeping track of all these horses and all these riders and all these circuits?
Extreme organization is really what it just comes down to. Have a system with organizing things. I have a couple of people who work with me, helping me categorize and organize things and just staying on top of it on the daily really is what it comes down to.
And I've seen you working before, and one thing that I've noticed is you like looking at the work tabs to try to figure out exactly where horses might be running and keeping an eye on that. Is that important for you to do that every day? Do you sort of do it all in one full sweep?
Yeah, it's an everyday thing for me. If a horse is working at a racetrack, there's a good shot they're going to run at that track is the way I see it. So, just especially at the beginning of a meet, seeing new horses pop up from different places, especially like a place like Oaklawn where, they come from Indiana, Kentucky, Texas, Oklahoma, Minnesota, New Jersey. They come from everywhere to get over here. So it's a quick way to kind of figure out what's going on here and try to keep up with it from there.
Well, you keep up with a lot of racing, so we're going to put that to the test a little bit here today.
Let's do it.
We've got a lot to discuss on Out of the Starting Gate. We're going to go around the country. We're going to talk about Triple Crown talk, the Derby Trail. So we're going to be talking about some Derby points races throughout the country this week. We're going to recap those races. We have a nice up-and-comer for you, not from Oaklawn Park, from Florida, where we saw him possibly move on to the next level in about a month based on his win this past Saturday at Gulfstream, the day of the Holy Bull. We'll recap the American Beauty from Oaklawn Park here last Saturday, won by Benedetta, and then we'll look forward to this week. The feature race is the Bayakoa Stakes for filly and mare routers. So without further ado, let's get to it. Jose, we've got 3 horses to kick off things in what we're going to call horses you've been chasing. Specifically for Jose, that's part of the job as a jockey agent, is to chase winners, find winners, get your jockeys on the most live horses possible. And Jose came up with 3 horses that he is chasing, and sometimes you guys, you jockey agents, keep it close to the vest. But you're going to go all out here on camera and tell me 3 horses that you are going to be chasing. And the first, and we're about to see the replay of each one, we'll start with Lemon Muffin from the D. Wayne Lucas barn. Jose, of course, we know Lemon Muffin winning last year the Honeybee Stakes, and you're chasing her hoping that she can get a win here.
Yeah, I've thrown the question out there, so hopefully it
already
comes, yeah, all of these were, come on.
Okay.
I asked before I let my secrets
Fair
out.
enough.
Come on.
Okay.
But Lemon Muffin's definitely one that we're going after. Ran in a one of the then last time, which she is a non-2 life, which is a race that we run here pretty often, just straight allowance, non-2 lives. But the thing about this 1X is that it excluded state-bred wins. Every other one that we've run this meeting has been state-bred allowance. So there's actually stake winners at the state-bred level in this race. It was the first of its kind this whole meet. So she was really running in the toughest one other than that has happened this meet for fillies going longer while still having that non-2 life allowance. So that is one of the main reasons why she's a horse that I'm chasing, because I feel like she has a race that's much easier than that down the line that goes rather often here. She does like to run second, so that has been an issue. They have kind of switched around riders a couple times. Last time was the apprentice Tyler Bacon, who's done phenomenal work here this meet, as well as with Mr. Lucas.
He's second in the standings
wow.
right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, he's having a tremendous meet, great young rider, and seems like a super nice kid from what I've seen. They kind of were in a situation where they had to make a 4-wide move around the turn. it's been in the past when Lemon Muffin has won her races. She hit her race, I should say. She hit the lead at the top of the stretch, so I believe he was trying to emulate that. I just think that they ended up having to go a little too wide and making a move at the half-mile pole to make that happen. It just became a little bit too much, and in the 8th pole, she started getting tired, and especially at the 16th pole when Under the Palms and Clara Beret came up to her. She didn't really have much challenge for them, but those are two fillies that both have multiple wins, one of them in a stakes level. So non-2 life, maybe a move around the 5/16 instead of the quarter pole, and hopefully with one of my riders, we'll get the job done next time.
And Lemon Muffin, you mentioned, and we see it in the replay, that she did have to make an early move, and she's one that has a quick spurt, but it's not for a long, sustained period of time. So if you make it too early, she's going to get tired, and that's something that Jose mentioned. We're going to go shift gears to another horse that's very much the opposite of Lemon Muffin. A sprinter, but B, more importantly, has only run one time, and it was her first career race for the Abel Ramirez Rodriguez barn. Morally complex. Harry Hernandez aboard in this race here, and she ran very well. She got bet here in this maiden claimer and put up a good, respectable showing.
Yeah, she ran a really good race, actually. She kind of broke a little awkwardly from the gate and was rushed up. She had to sit 4 wide the whole way down the backside with a little outside pressure from the 12 horse. Harry, going into the turn, asked her to kind of take the lead, come over on the horses to her inside, which was a very smart move, because if not, he's going to get hung out 4 or 5 wide. But it was a taxing move, that being said. So by the 8th pole, she was kind of tired. At the 16th pole, she seemed completely exhausted, but was still able to hold on for second, which I'd like to see, and didn't just pull up immediately during the gallop out. She kind of flowed into it a little bit better than you would have expected based off how she was finishing. Carl's not necessarily known for his firsters. Had that one ready to go, but I think we'll see improvement off the taxing effort last time. And with Carl, you know that the horse will be well placed.
And Carl, of course, Carl Broberg, the owner, End Zone Athletics.
Yes.
And morally complex. First time out, as you mentioned, and I was going to note that, so well done. You did your homework. Second time out, might be able to take a step forward.
Yes.
And you see that with a lot of barns in general. And then, of course, we love our Arkansas breds here in Arkansas. So let's talk about one. Air Castle from the John Prather barn. And Air Castle ran pretty well this past weekend. And before the race, Jose, I was talking to you, and you liked her a little bit in the race, and she ran well.
Yeah, she ran really well. Broke with the field, but then was kind of squeezed back by the 4 and the 6. Not really anyone's doing, just kind of the field came together and she had to take up. I'd say she lost action for about a 1/16 of a mile. The race kind of ran to where the pace held. I'd call it about the 5/8 pole. Manny was able to get a little closer on Captive Heart to the leader, who was Cold as Ice. Cold as Ice went on. They kind of carried on. The only one to come from the back was Air Castle, and kind of with a 1-pace stride as well. I'd like to see this one, I think, going 2 turns. She has a good stride to her. She reaches for a lot of ground. Her pedigree kind of suggests that she would go longer. So I think maybe back against Arky Breds, a little cleaner trip, closer to the pace, coming from the sprint off the route and going 2 turns is something I'll be looking for. But really, off her last effort, anywhere she's placed, I think she's one that you could play back.
So remember those names. Lemon Muffin, Air Castle we just mentioned, and Morally Complex, who will be making her second start at a date to be determined. Jose, as an agent, do you ever suggest to trainers running this race?
If you have a relationship with a certain trainer, absolutely, but mainly I'm just asking for the horse. And really the way the condition book works, there's only so many options that you do have to run. So usually if I'm asking for a horse, everyone here knows what they're doing. So
right,
they know
and you don't have 10 options. You might have 2 or 3 maybe, but that's about it. So that's fair enough. Those are 3 horses that Jose is chasing. And, of course, we're trying to find a Kentucky Derby winner in the mix every week, it appears now, as it is Derby trail season. That's right. So we are going to have what I call Triple Crown talk. We had some Derby points races and some pretty important ones with some pretty significant horses and points on the line this past week. 3 of them, in fact. We had the Holy Bull Stakes at Gulfstream Park. We had the Robert Lewis at Santa Anita. And then we had the Withers in New York. And Jose, by the way, has Chris Elliott in New York currently, the son of Stuart Elliott. So you've got your tentacles in all sorts of different places, and we're going to be able to show that type of knowledge from you today. Let's start with the Holy Bull, which is at Gulfstream Park, 20 Kentucky Derby points to the winner of this race. And the Holy Bull, of course, has always historically been a strong race. This year we had a little bit of a smaller field, a field of 7, but you saw Burnham Square in this race on Saturday getting the job done. Edgard Zayas and Ian Wilkes received a 90 buyer for this effort. And Burnham Square, Jose, was a bit of a wise guy horse, so to speak, a horse that just was generally getting better, wasn't the class of the race, but really ran a career best this afternoon on Saturday.
Yeah, it really impressed me. Burnham Square broke from the outside and was kind of allowed to drop back, come onto the rail by Edgard Zayas, and handled the dirt very well. I mean, just kind of took it. Wasn't the first time that he's seen dirt in his face, but took it very, very well. And onto the backside was allowed to progress up the rail in hand, and he really handled that well. You know, he was stopped right when he ran into the traffic, kept his position, all while under wraps, didn't have to be asked to get into there. So he's a horse that looked like he was doing it all well within himself. About the 9/16 pole, the runner-up Tappan Street was asked to go 4 wide, which was kind of a taxing move out of that horse. I think he's going to move up big time. He's kind of the horse that I like out of this race, but when he made that move, it opened things up for Burnham Square to follow him, and by the top of the stretch, Edgard Zayas was in full attack mode, hopped on, and finished very strongly. I liked everything I saw out of him as well.
He gave the right trip to the horse,
Yes, he
and
did.
the horse, of course, performed, that being Burnham Square. But mentioning Tappan Street, he actually went off favorite in the race, Jose, and he was well regarded. There were whispers before his first start that he was a very nice horse in the Cox Barn. Thought highly of him, and he got the job done. And as you mentioned, a horse that maybe can improve. So we don't need to go too much farther than that. Jose thinks Tappan Street can improve and get better here as the year goes on in 2025. 2 horses in this race that were also well meant, had good past form, did not perform. Ferocious and Guns Loaded. Guns Loaded, we'll start with him. He ran last. He really didn't perform. Tried to stalk the pace, was engaging the leaders down the backstretch, and faded very badly. What'd you make of that?
I think speed is going to be his best friend.
Okay.
I think I understand why they're trying to rate him. It's the first time going 2 turns. Of course, they have Derby dreams. His pedigree seems to suggest that distance wouldn't be a problem, though when he's run, he's kind of a speed demon, it looks like. But I would say going forward, if Triple Crown dreams are still there for them, you'd see this one maybe on the lead next time instead of trying to rate him, because he kind of just looked uncomfortable. And then when Ferocious came to his outside, followed by Tappan Street, he kind of just got engulfed, and Irad could tell it wasn't his day and just kind of let him cruise in.
And the thing about that, as you mentioned, is Irad did let him cruise in.
Yes.
And that's an angle. If a horse doesn't run a good race, they weren't all out to lose by, let's just say, 15 lengths. The rider wrapped up on him.
Right.
That's another thing as well you mentioned with the speed is horses that are tactical, that's the best type of running style. Horses that can go to the lead stock. This horse, it appears, is one that you can't take away his speed, and you sort of have to ride him one way, which is just to let him run.
Right, and whether it just be a confidence thing out of him or just getting into the nice rhythm, he's fast enough to lead any one of these races. So
Sure.
I wouldn't completely discount him, but I would just like to see him more forwardly placed this time.
And Ferocious is one that was purchased for a lot of money. This horse won on debut at Saratoga and was well meant, and then stakes placed at his next start. But his last 2 races haven't been quite as good. And this past race, he ran off a little bit of a break, had run in the Breeders' Cup and ran okay in midfield. But Ferocious, again, running off the board. I believe he ran 4th this day, but Ferocious sort of ran an even race. His form hasn't been going in the right direction since the summertime. Do you think he's a 1-turn horse? His best races are at 1 turn? Do you think maybe he just was a precocious horse that they've caught up to him? What do you make of this horse?
So I live in Florida, across the street from Gulfstream, so I've gotten to see this horse train. He's a beautiful mover, really, really nice horse. It was a big ask, of course, like you said. I believe it was 57 days from his last race to his first work, and then it was only followed up by 2 other works. Obviously, this isn't the final goal for them. They think very highly of this horse by the way they've campaigned him. It was also the first time blinkers, so maybe that had something to do with it. Fortunately, he's got a phenomenal trainer in Gustavo Delgado, and they will figure it all out. I do think there's a chance that he may be distance limited and may prefer the 1 turn, but he's not one I'll necessarily toss out because there's a lot of talent there.
And he's a beautiful horse. You look at him and you can tell why he was purchased for a lot of money on his physical alone. Gustavo Delgado, of course, the trainer of Mage,
yes,
who won the Kentucky Derby a couple of years back. That was the Holy Bull Stakes. A lot to decipher there. You can go to YouTube to watch the replay of the Holy Bull if you'd like to see it again. We'll shift gears to New York, a little bit of cooler weather up there in Queens, New York from Florida, and we'll talk about the Withers next. Captain Cook, a horse trained by Richard Dutrow Jr., obviously a very good trainer, won this race. The Withers got a 94 buyer, a son of Practical Joe. I don't know how strong of a field he beat here, Jose, but he got a good number and he did it the right way. But Practical Joke, he himself was distance limited. What do you make of this horse in terms of distance? Is this about the distance he wants to run? Do you think he can run farther? What do you make of that?
I was actually very impressed with this effort.
Okay.
I was. I do agree with you, questioning, of course, the difficulty of what he ran against. I'm not sure how deep the race was, but visually, broke right in stride, was able to settle 3 wide, and was always within himself. I mean, Manny was just kind of sitting against him, waiting for his cue, and he found a really good rhythm very early. Sometimes it takes horses a little bit of time. You know, they struggle around the turn, and maybe on the backside they'll finally grab the bit. He grabbed the bit before they went into the first turn. He was ready to go. It was very professional. He's clearly improving, just keeps on moving up. It looked like Sahin Savachi, who was on the horse that ran second, whose name's escaping me at the moment, tried to surprise Franco. He was like right behind him and popped up on his hip, and Franco had to kind of ask Captain Cook to respond right away.
Manny Franco, the jockey of
Manny
Captain
Franco,
Cook.
yes. He had to ask him to respond right away, and he did. He responded right away under left-hand urging, and what I liked most is right before the wire, Manny switched to the right hand, and you could see the horse dart towards the wire. He never actually used the whip on him, but he just kind of showed it to him. And the horse galloped out strong right after that. It made me think there was a little more in the tank there. And first time 2 turns, going a mile and 8 is not an easy thing to do.
No.
During the wintertime, that can be a very heavy track. I was very impressed with what I saw.
And that's another thing, going a mile and an 8. So this horse just has to go another furlong in order to
And it was
get
first
the Derby
time 2
distance.
turns. That's what he was doing, only in his 3rd start. I mean, to me, it looks like there's a lot of talent there.
So I'm sure he will be staying in New York for the foreseeable future to stay there with Mr. Dutrow, his stable, of course, Rick Dutrow, a very, very good trainer.
I think I read that they are aiming towards the Wood Memorial.
Okay.
Yeah,
that would
I
make
believe
sense.
I read that.
The Wood Memorial's in late March, early April?
I believe it's April 5th this year.
Okay, so that'll be a week after the Arkansas Derby
Yes.
here at Oaklawn Park. And we're on the East Coast. We're going to take a quick travel all the way to the West Coast to talk about our last Derby points race this week, the Bob Lewis. Jose, we got to see the Breeders' Cup juvenile champion, Citizen Bull, make his 3-year-old debut. He won this race. He was projected to win this race. The only other threats to him were 2 other Bob Baffert trained horses. Of course, Citizen Bull trained by Bob Baffert. He went to the lead just like he did in the Breeders' Cup. He got a clear lead, and he just kicked on and won very nicely. It wasn't something that was super flashy, but it didn't need to be, and I wouldn't imagine that Bob Baffert would have this horse cranked up to run his best race in a race like this.
For sure. He's a horse that has a lot more foundation than most of the other horses that we've spoken about. I believe he's 6 starts in. Maybe that was his 5th or 6th start,
Fifth start, I think. Yeah.
is not really what's been going on recently of the Derby pictures. You kind of see
Sure.
horses that reemerge, like kind of emerge around this time more recently. So he's kind of a different kind of horse than what we've seen, but it's been very impressive. He kind of broke a step slow, but was able to get the lead rather easily with Rodriguez sitting off of him. And Rodriguez is kind of a horse I found a little interesting because he took outside pressure from the amount of Kent DeSormo's Wesley Ward train. Can't remember his name at the moment. But when he did take that outside pressure, Rodriguez kind of lost his stride for about 1/8 of a mile. And Juan Hernandez popped him to the outside and asked him to make a run again around the 3/8 bull, and he did. He jumped right into it. Citizen Bull just, to me, looked like he had a much easier trip and was able to carry on the whole way. It'd be interesting to see how much more is there for Citizen Bull because I believe to win the Kentucky Derby, we're going to need to see more than what he's shown. And I haven't seen him necessarily move up in any race. It's kind of looked exactly the same to me every single time. So I'm not sure how much he has there to move up, but he is with the right guy.
And you told me 2 things just now, and the viewers, of course, that I wanted to mention. One is Rodriguez, who I was going to mention you did not have the most desirable trip. He seems like one that, coming off a maiden win where he got a 100 buyer, if you're a buyer speed figures person, you're going to say this horse is the real deal. He's legit. He's a stakes horse. He's a Derby type of horse if you can go a mile and a quarter. Do you think that Rodriguez down the road could be just as good as Citizen Bull if he gets the right trip and improves?
I think he can be better.
You think he can be better than Citizen Bull?
I do. It was a huge ask, of course. The second start, 2 turns, and like I said, Citizen Bull, an extremely seasoned horse in comparison to a lot of the other ones on the Derby Trail that we're speaking about so far. Obviously, with that, I think there's a lot more room to improve. I don't think the distance will be an issue at all, and I think with maturity, he'll even start running better. And I really don't think there's that much difference in talent level even right now.
And I would agree with that. And the fact of the matter is this horse only had 4 horses in it, and Citizen Bull coasted on an easy lead. The other riders on the Baffert horses took a hold. They wanted to rate their mounts, got everything his own way. How much does this race tell us about Citizen Bull?
It tells us that he's a very forward horse for sure. I mean, he doesn't make many mistakes. He broke a little slow, but he recovered very quickly, and he's just kind of a horse that seems to be ahead of the other ones that we're speaking about right now. The other ones are kind of emerging, where this one's kind of said, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm capable of, it's very good. Are you going to be good enough to beat me?
And Citizen Bull will likely see him at Santa Anita next. He's probably going to stay home. I'm hearing a horse like Barnes could ship out of town for Bob Baffert running a race like the Rebel, which we'll talk about on a further episode. Another horse that's emerging, you mentioned an emerging horse, and our up-and-comer just won this week is a 3-year-old who has been very impressive in his first 2 career races, both in Florida for trainer Todd Pletcher, and his name is River Thames. John Velasquez aboard this one, sprinted first out, won very impressively, and this horse got a 94 buyer for about a 5-length win on January 11th, going 6 furlongs. This past Saturday in race 7 at Gulfstream, River Thames won impressively again. He got a 92 buyer at a 1-turn mile, so he went farther, but he stayed at that 1 turn, and he was on the inside of horses early, Jose, and just kept going and kicked away like a powerful Todd Pletcher good horse.
Yes, he did. It looked like a everyday Todd Pletcher performance out of a 3-year-old that we've been watching as long as we've been alive.
For sure.
So, yeah, very impressive. Broke sharp. There was a clear speed horse, the Fausto Gutierrez speed horse, who made the lead, who I always thought was distance limited in that race, and he kind of proved it at the end, though he did fight on for third. He was able to sit on the rail, kind of 3/4 of a length off his flank, and then made a move to secure the rail going into the turn, and just kind of kept going from there. And like you said, he opened up very impressively. With this one, though, I do have distance questions.
Okay.
It kind of comes with the whole McLean's music, discreet cat on the mom side. The mom herself was a sprinter. Not a whole lot of route pedigree there. He's never really had much challenge yet. I'd like to see how he would handle the 2 turns with a little bit more adversity, whether it's having to sit off horses, which kind of looked like they wanted to test out in that last race. You know, they could have pushed on to the lead at any point, but
Sure.
It seemed like they wanted to see if he could rate, and he did rate very well. But I do have the distance questions with him.
You've been around racing your whole life. Going from a 1-turn mile and talking about maybe if a horse was transitioning to a 2-turn mile, like we see here at Oaklawn Park, to you, is that a significant deal? Would you say going a 1-turn mile, you would say, well, this horse, he could run as an older horse in the Breeders' Cup dirt mile going 2 turns, or does that not give us as much of an indication? What's your opinion on that?
So for me, with the 2-turn mile opposed to the 1-turn mile is how long they have to catch a rhythm when they go 1 turn. You know, when they're going 1 turn, they can kind of gather themselves over about a 1/4 of a mile and then start the next 1/4 of a mile really picking up steam heading into the turn around the half-mile pole. Where when it comes to the 2-turn mile races, they've only got about 1/8 of a mile to get their footing. Now, if they can't handle their footing into there, now you've got the turn. You got to do that now for a 1/4 of a mile. So now the first 3/8, some horses who can't quite get their footing as early as others are struggling for 3/8 of the race and have to make up all that ground through the backside. And
Sure.
It's not always an easy task.
And of course, you mentioned McLean's music, the sire of this horse, right? He was a very fast horse. He ran 1 time for Steve Asmussen, freaked, and then that was that. He had issues that couldn't get him back to the races, but he's been a good stallion. Unfortunately, we've seen with a lot of his prodigy, which is not a bad thing wholeheartedly, 100% bad, but you're not probably going to get a Kentucky Derby type of horse with the McLean's music because they are distance limited in many situations. But this horse certainly one that even if, for example, he's not a Kentucky Derby type of horse, you've got the Woody Stevens,
yeah,
you've got the H. Allen Jerkins.
There's one thing for sure, there is a lot of talent there.
Sure.
And when there's that much talent with a 3-year-old, and you've put that much money into them, and you've seen what you see now of them, it's impossible to not try the Kentucky Derby Trail. And he could surprise us all. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time ever. So
Absolutely.
you got to try it. But regardless of where he ends up throughout the rest of the season, there's a lot of talent there.
If they keep him healthy, there are races for him to win and good races to win and to make a lot of money with. So River Thames, you want to watch him. He's 2 for 2 for the Todd Pletcher barn. Todd Pletcher, good to be him the last, 15 years? I would say
longer
at
than
least.
that. He's the man.
It's good to be Todd.
Teflon Todd.
And I'll tell you this, when you're spending your winters in Florida and your summers at Saratoga,
You're winning.
you're winning.
Yeah.
Todd's a winner, and he's got a lot of winners in the barn. So
For
River
sure.
Thames is one you're going to want to watch. Those are all the recaps we've talked about with 3-year-olds. But now we're shifting gears to our fillies and mares right here in the great state of Arkansas, Hot Springs, Arkansas. Oaklawn Park, we had the American Beauty Stakes here last Saturday, race number 9, and it was won none other by Benedetta, who won her 4th race in a row in a field of 6 there. Keith Asmussen was aboard this one. This gal had just won recently, a couple months ago in November, a race at Mahoning Valley, a stakes race there on their biggest day of the year. Came here in the American Beauty to one of Steve's homes in the wintertime, Oaklawn Park, and she was very workmanlike in this effort, Jose, but she won and got it done. Not saying she's necessarily a grade 1 type of horse right now, but she's certainly going in the right direction. One of these fillies and mares that just little by little she's gotten better over time.
Yeah, she has. And, watching her other races as well, she doesn't like to separate from fields. She kind of gets the lead to the amount that she needs to and cruises in from there. And I think that's what we saw again. I do think there's more in the tank for her. She needs to be challenged by a horse as talented as she is. She just kind of looks like she's gotten in the habit of, all right, this is what I need to do. The job's done. Let's go home. So
Sure.
I think if she faces a little steeper challenge than what she's been facing in her last few starts, we'll see a faster time, faster speed figures.
It was like when I played baseball, and there were times where your team would play to the competition that they were facing.
For sure.
Same type of deal. We would play really good teams. I remember I played Bryce Harper's team one time when he's about our age, and we played his team, and we didn't win the game. We were a very, very high-level team, and we played in a high-level tournament, but they were better, and significantly better. They were one of the best in the country, and we battled with them.
Right.
But we would play other teams that weren't nearly as good as us, and we would either not play very well and win, or there were a couple times where we lost and we shouldn't have because we played at the level to the competition.
You play to your competition. It's a saying we've heard, and it's the same with horses. Some horses, they
Sure.
like to just do enough, whatever it takes, and then that's it. So I believe that's what she is. So I do think there's a lot more under there. And Taxed is another one out of this race that I really like moving forward. It was the first time back at the sprint. She had no early speed because of it from all her route races. I'd imagine Randy keeps her sprinting. I don't know that for sure, but if he does, she'll be much closer next time having that sprint in her. And she's got a dangerous kick, especially when we get further on in the year and all these 7/8 races start happening. They're very important throughout the year. I think she's going to be extremely dangerous.
And I don't need to ask the question, what to do with Taxed. You heard it from Jose. Might stick to the one turn. She's not winning races as of late, but she's picking up checks, running well, and she's always around at the wire. So she's one that you can absolutely expect to be around again in future races. But Benedetta is one that I think they're going to keep her sprinting. And
For sure.
Steve has a lot of strength, Steve Asmussen, but one of them is he's fantastic at developing horses, and this is a perfect example.
He's as good as it gets.
Just hands-on horseman, believe it or not, with 400 horses that he's got in all different places. He is hands-on.
He runs an incredible operation, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and Keith Asmussen, of course, the son of Steve Asmussen aboard Benedetta, and also we have Eric Asmussen, who won the Eclipse Award last week, so for Top Apprentice 2024. We got one more thing to discuss here, folks, the Bayakoa Stakes. We're going to talk about the feature race here at Oaklawn this Saturday, and the favorite in this race in a field of 7, if you take a look at this graphic right here, is Loved, and Loved is trained by Brendan Walsh. We don't see Brendan that often here at Oaklawn. He doesn't have a string here, but he will ship for stakes races, and Tyler Gaffleone is flying out to ride this one here. The Bayakoa for older fillies and mares going 2 turns, so this is on the road to the Apple Blossom here. And the last time we saw Loved, Jose, she ran over a wet surface, and this Godolphin homebred was very impressive, winning the Falls City Stakes on November 28th at Churchill over that wet track.
Yes, extremely impressive. Her 2 best by her speed figures are over wet tracks, so I do think that helped her quite a bit. But a lot of talent here, always has been. One thing about her, though, she is kind of hit or miss. As you see, she's run 10 times, 5 wins, no other on-the-board efforts. So if you are looking for a price in here, this is kind of a horse that I like to play against because sure, she might win and, you get your favorite in, but there's kind of, based off her past performance, a 50-50 shot she doesn't show up at all and doesn't hit the board. And if you play against that, there's a little more money there.
And you like to play pick fives. I know that.
Yes.
Pick fives, pick fours. And especially in your college days, you'd go to the track with your buddies, you'd formulate tickets. So you have knowledge when I ask you this question. With a runner like Loved in a pick five, for example, would you use her defensively, or would you just keep her off and try to beat her if you liked somebody else in this race?
If I had another horse that I was in love with in this race, I'd probably just single them, but I do feel like this is kind of a wide open field. The way I would more play this race is a trifecta without her in it.
Okay.
Try to catch prices around.
Fair
That's
enough.
kind of the angle in which I'll go with here.
Fair enough. And you can be a good handicapper, but if you don't formulate your bets correctly, that's where you can get in trouble. I say that all the time.
Yes.
So you can handicap the race right, but not play it right, as Jose is mentioning here. So maybe you try to beat a horse like Loved on the win end here if you believe that she is inconsistent, which on the form it does look like she is. One runner that's been very consistent, and you know very well, Jose, because your jockey rides this mare, is Corningstone, who has won 2 stakes in a row. Jose, I'm sure absolutely thrilled about that.
I love her.
Kenny McPeak, she's on your personal Hall of Fame list so far for this meet.
Absolutely. She's been great.
And Corningstone, hey, Kenny McPeak, he takes shots, but also he's one when the iron's hot, let's keep it rolling here.
For sure.
So he's going to enter her right back, wheeling her back quickly after a nice stakes win last time out in the Pippin Stakes. Also won the Mistletoe Stakes as well here at Oaklawn Park. She's a 2-time stakes winner at the meet. What do you make of her chances here?
I think she's got a very realistic chance to win, especially if Love doesn't show up. I mean, she's probably the second choice in here, I'd imagine. Like you said, 2 for 2 on the meet. She went to the lead last time. The race before, she sat off the pace. So she's, like you were saying, it's nice when you have a horse that's tactical because she'll rate in any situation that you give her. So Julian's got options. Last time he decided to go to lead from the rail. He's on the rail again. We'll have to see how the pace plays out. The 2, Wild About Hillary, is a horse that only has gone wire to wire, so I'm sure CJ McMahon shipping in will be very aggressive with that one. So Julian, he knows what he's doing out there. I'm not going to try to guess what he's going to do, but I'm sure whatever he does will be in a tactical position and give her a shot to show her class at the end.
And Cody Cottle, when he was the guest here on Out of the Starting Gate, noted that Julian made a great decision last time to go to the lead when nobody really wanted to go out there, and he just took the initiative with clearly the best mare in the race.
Right. She's confident right now, so pretty much any situation you put her in, so long that she can be comfortable, she's going to finish for you.
And one more runner we did not mention is Free Like a Girl, just a really cool mare. They have run her a bunch, though, recently, and her form sort of tailed off a little bit. But she ran 3rd in the Grade 1 Apple Blossom here last year, and she is a multiple stakes winner, just a really cool Louisiana bred. But, again, her form is tailed off a little bit. She was well beaten in the Houston Classic.
Yeah, a race that she was second in only by a half length last year. And kind of the buyer speed figures are telling the story there as well. They're just a little bit slower than last year's spring and summer campaign. She's done well here in the past, so it wouldn't be surprised to see her come up again because, like you said, she's got a lot of class. But for me, it seems like she's just lost that little bit of step.
Free Like a Girl, she'll be racing here once again. The last time we saw her was when she ran 3rd in the Grade 1 Apple Blossom. Also, Little Jamie's in this race. She won a stake at Tampa last time out, just hard-knocking filly, who actually is eligible for a non-3 allowance race. But to win a stakes race and then try to get some more black type, that's not a bad thing. Looks like she's one of just these hard-trying fillies that tries hard every race.
Yeah, she handled the Wayward last with pretty relative ease, I thought it was a pretty impressive performance, honestly. It was her first 4-year-old start, so she might just be getting better. It looks like on the numbers she's getting better. She was able to rate last time, which I found interesting. All her good races, she was close to the pace always. Junior Alvarado had her in 7th. I believe she was trailing at a certain point and made a run. Not as much speed in this race, and Ramon Vasquez, who's ridden her in the past, has always been aggressive with her. So it'll be interesting to see if he will follow the same tactics that Junior did, because I thought last time was her best performance, and she may have found that she can rate a little bit more effectively and finish with a good punch. So we'll see what Ramon decides to do from there.
The final segment of our Out of the Starting Gate YouTube show here. I've got Denny's Clocker pick for Saturday. And it's a first-time starter, or he is a first-time starter from the Moquett barn. His name is Him, and we're going to take a look at this workout right here in December out of the gate. This horse just blasted out of the gate. Has a lot of natural speed, it appears here. A son of McKenzie and Jose. As you know, the McKenzies have been really firing.
Yes, they have. McKenzie has been a hot proposition, and I have been asking Ron about this horse for a while.
Really? So you've heard about him?
Yeah, following that work tab.
Okay.
We were talking about.
There you go. He's doing his homework, the man
sir,
himself.
Trying to. Cody Caudill beat me to the punch, as he usually does.
And guess who was his mentor, by the way, when Cody was learning how to be an agent, right?
He's helped me, I've helped him. Yeah, yeah, we've had a good time. But Salt Bae, the mom, was a horse that I really liked a lot. Yeah. Very good sprinter with the McKenzie in there. I think there's going to be a lot of talent there. And the work tab, like you said, is kind of telling the story. I believe this horse has, my favorite angle when it comes to first-time starters or really any horse. If I see 2 5/8 bullet works in either between races or prior to the first work, you've got me sold, and he's got him.
Especially for someone like Ron Moquett, who doesn't work his horses super fast all the time. He'll let him roll in the mornings every once in a while, but if this horse is continually putting up good times, who knows? Maybe this horse can only go 5/8 of a mile. We don't really know until we see how they run in a race what they're going to turn out as a racehorse, but certainly looks like one that at the very, very, very least has a lot of natural speed, and that helps with these 6-furlong races because sometimes the horses that are younger or inexperienced, maybe down the road they might not be the best horse of the bunch, but the ones who are the most precocious and speedy are the ones who win early.
Yeah, one thing I found interesting is Ron had this horse all the way up to 5/8 at the end of June.
Right.
You know, and whatever
Early
it may have
as a
been,
2-year-old.
yes, he decided to give him a break and bring him back for this time, but that's not something Ron, normally does. So he felt like this horse was forward early, was training well. The works back then were just as good as the works are now, and now he's been back in the full swing of things since late November and looks ready to rock to me.
So Him's going to be the Denny's Clocker pick here for this weekend. He'll be running on Saturday afternoon. HYMN, not him like him.
We're going to find out if him is him.
We're going to find out if him is him. And hey, we're going to have a great day of racing on Saturday with 10 races. Very good card.
Yeah, very good card.
On Saturday. Friday, Saturday racing here at Oaklawn. First post to be 12:30. We're not racing on Sunday for the big game. But we will be running for 2 days, Friday and Saturday. So, Jose, it's been a pleasure having you. Thanks for being a guest. Hope to have you back another time
anytime
on the show. We'll have plenty more of these, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Out of the Starting Gate. But for now, have a great week, and hopefully you can make some winning wagers. See you later.